Now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the Renewed Hope Infrastructure Development Fund to bridge the country's $25 billion per annum infrastructure funding gap. According to the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, who spoke on Monday's Federal Executive Council meeting at the Presidential Villa in Abuja, the new initiative will be domiciled in the presidency. Idris said the fund became necessary given Nigeria's current infrastructure gap, requiring $878 billion to bridge between 2016 and 2040. Additionally, the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zak Adedeji, said the fund would focus on road, rail, agriculture, ports, and aviation. Arise News analyst Dayo Sobowale joins us to share his perspective on the initiative and how this would be different from the extant infrastructure funding program. I want to say good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
It's a pleasure being here as usual.
All right. If you were to take a stab at this, looking at this, what's your thoughts about this new initiative and development?
Well, we are talking infrastructure.
Yes.
And invariably, it is a spending spree. Spending spree. If you recollect, on the eve of the departure of the last administration, even when we were waiting for during the campaign or so, we had a lot of structural projects being signed. And people raised alarm then that for a departing government, why are they doing that? But luckily, it is the same party in power. So infrastructure, we need infrastructure. As at now, according to the World Bank, our infrastructure stock should be 70% of our GDP, but it is between 30 and 35%. So we are still not there. So on the surface, while it may seem government is spending money, it is money that will make our environment conducive for growth and development. See, we may have fears, given the morality of the political system, that corruption is there, the money may not be spent, but the money has to be spent to develop. And you see, the money for infrastructural development is not something just like that. It's something that you have to plan for, to build an airport, to build a road. For example now, according to the World Bank, we need 200,000 miles of road all over Nigeria. But we have only 60,000 paved all over Nigeria. And you see projects going up here and there. And then, of course, they need to be funded by debts, by budgets. And we have a very unhealthy debt to GDP ratio, which is killing us literally, yet we are still borrowing more. So my take is that it's a necessary evil because we don't want our environment to improve. My own key preferences would have been for us to secure our schools, to build more schools, make education free, and then secure our environment. Because right now, our security infrastructure has not been able to contain the sort of terrorism, brigandage, kidnapping that we are seeing now. So that is part of the infrastructure too. So there is no way we can ask government not to spend money on infrastructure. The Tinubu administration has called it this Renewed Hope Infrastructure Development Fund. Buhari has his own Presidential Development Fund. Thankfully, they have said they are merging the two together. I want them to merge the two together and not start from scratch as they normally do in Nigeria. All those projects done towards the tail end, they should be adopted and screened. Those that are not in tune with the policies of this president can be discarded. But we need infrastructure. We need infrastructure, especially power, the power sector. Because, we need to repair our refineries, most especially, because that's the source of our revenue, the main source of our revenue. We need to make sure those refineries work. Why they have not worked in Nigeria? Whereas if they work, we don't need to be refining our oil our crude overseas. We do it in-house. We save foreign exchange. So let that work. Let this renewable infrastructure strategy include making the refineries work. Luckily, they have said 2 of them will start working by the end of the year. But I think it will be the greatest achievement of this, infrastructure achievement of this administration. You can make the refineries work if they can make power available for our industries, for our schools, for our hospitals, and if they can secure our environment for tertiary education, especially. I'll be a very happy man.
I'm sure you will, and those are very crucial matters, of course. Like you said in your opening statement, Mr. Sobowale, this is definitely a spending spree, and we want to see that we're getting what we pay for. So what's been advised is that there will need to be implementation of robust monitoring and evaluation. What would you like to see in that regard to ensure that this money actually does what it's supposed to do?
Yes, monitoring now. Monitoring. We know the projects. And you say it's not as if the projects are, if you look at the press release, it's like something like an essay. Do you get it? Whereas there are so many projects involved. That's why we even have ministries. You get me? You have projects in agriculture, especially in this time, things that have to do with the fuel subsidy is gone saga. Do you get me? I'm happy people are a bit relaxed before, because immediately after the advent of this administration, people didn't want to hear about infrastructure spending, because people, especially some people I know, they didn't want to hear anything about infrastructure, that we are suffering a big power and all that. But luckily, I think tempers are coming down. People are seeing that the government has to be given space to do what it has to do, but to secure the environment and make sure there's food on the table for people. So like you asked, I think it's monitoring. We know the projects. Let's make sure there's no duplication of effort. And I'm happy the taxman is there, the taxman high. Because you see, all these things we are doing, if you raise revenue, if you get loans, you get me? At the end of the day, we should provide an enabling environment for the average Nigerian to live a decent life. Bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. That is what democracy is all about. If democracy does not bridge the gap between the rich and the poor, it's not worth it. I say that boldly. It must put food on the table and bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. As we are seeing now, although this is on infrastructure, so I don't want to deviate. The signs are not there. But on infrastructure, I support all efforts as long as at the end of the day we are able to pay our debts. Get me? You don't get too much involved with both Chinese and the Americans and all these people who are ready to include, especially, I'm very, very suspicious of the World Bank. We are talking of monetary. They provide the funds. But you know, their funds don't have a human face when it comes to getting their money back. And they put such conditionalities that hit up the political system. Very big. That's why I'm wary of them. But then, no nation is an island. We need them, just like we need them. But you should know, in economic terms, their freedom should end where our nose begins. We should not borrow money at such a rate that you can't afford the next meal, or you can't live peacefully with each other.
All right. Permit me to ask this question, because people talk about borrowing to fund infrastructure, which should be. But it's almost like the reverse has been the case. We've borrowed aplenty, but literally we have nothing to show for it. So when we see initiatives like this rise up again, people are a little bit wary, because this is not the first time, this is not the second time, this is not the third time. When you look at infrastructure development in the last 10 years, it begs to question that what is the government doing? Because some would even insist that why not even have a legacy project that would define an administration? You can decide that, okay, we're going to fix power. The president himself has said, don't vote me in if I do not fix power next time around. Or probably it could be the refineries. Because we've gone far too long, and it is unexplainable why, as Nigeria, we cannot have working refineries. But yet, we talk about infrastructure, yet we talk about borrowing monies, and we have nothing to show for it.
Well, they say every cloud has a silver lining. The Buhari infrastructure, the Buhari administration posted, in fact, I read an editorial in one of the newspapers, that his main achievements was that it's fixed infrastructure. You get me? And that while he may not be able to clap for him too much, he was better than the previous two administrations of Jonathan and Obasanjo. Get me? And then you see, I think Buhari was forward-looking in terms of infrastructure because he put his neck out. All those projects designed towards them. These are public goods. These are goods that at the end of the day, it's not going to be enjoyed by only a section of the society. Public goods are goods that everybody enjoys at the end of the day, no matter how many people line their pockets with their establishment. So I think infrastructure, we should focus on it. And since the taxman is there, we try to widen our revenue base so that we are not too much in debt at the end of the day.
I'm still fixated on that point that you said that democracy is not worth it if we don't bridge the gap between the rich and the poor, and I definitely support that. Thank you so much, Arise News analyst Mr. Dayo Sobowale, for your insight. Thank you.